So how did you go from one shop to the kiddie care brand?
By selling businesses. So after the first year, when I joined Barry, the first year of the shop didn't make any money.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where mentors come in, because it's great to have a mentor. Even if it's for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, you can learn such a lot. And I've had such a good experiences with mentors along the way. And they didn't even know they were mentors. So, first year came along, Marilyn had put about 50 hours work in to the shop. Never took a penny out. I was working there on a Saturday, and then we would go out in the evenings to buy stuff from wholesalers. We'd be down at the East End of London on a Sunday buying, and in Luton, so buying clothes. So we'd spent all this time running around like idiots, and at the end of the year, when we thought, oh, we're buying new Mercedes or whatever, as and go on holiday, and the accountant said, well, you've made £1,500, and that's just extra stock. So we sold that business, we did, to a school teacher, and the day we were selling, it was a Friday, and there was completing the deal. I was going to go and sign in the solicitors. We was completing that deal. A guy called Carl Davis from Pedigree Triang Prams came in. He was a rep, and we sat there because fish and chip shop was 2 doors away. We was having fish and chips. Always used to have fish and chips when Carl came in.
Yeah,
he was a massive bloke. He was about 30 stone. Anyway, we was in the back of the shop having fish and chips, and I said, well, we won't see any more, Carl. It's been nice knowing you. And he goes, why? I said, well, we haven't made any money. We've been here a year, haven't made any money, so we've sold it. And I'm going to sign it at 2 o'clock. And he said, but why? I said, well, there's no passing trade. He put his fish and chips down, he got up, and he got me my collar. I say I was about 9 stone, and he pulled me up, and he dragged me out of the shop, and he says, look down the street. This was the main street coming into Peterborough and going out, and he swung me around like a rag doll, and he said, look, you're on the main street of coming in and going out of Peterborough. And he says, nobody knows you're here, because if a terraced house, there was like 50 terraced houses all in a row on the pavement, and it didn't stand out to anybody else's. He says, nobody knows you're here. He says, I've seen you work so hard, you and Marilyn worked so hard over this last year. He says, you cannot give it up. And in those split seconds, when he was swinging me around, I thought, this guy's got passion. I've never seen passion like it.
Yeah.
And it was not his business. It was my business and Marilyn's business, and he was more passionate about our business than we were.
Yeah.
And it was a kick up the arse that I needed. I went into the shop and I said to Marilyn, we're not selling. And she goes, why? I said, Carl's just told me.
Carl says we shouldn't.
Carl said we shouldn't. Now, she is Taurus. She is a Taurian, She is like a bull. And if she didn't want to, she would have told me straight, no, we're selling. But she didn't. She didn't want to sell. But how could I told her that we were staying. Now, how do you go, well, it's going to be better tomorrow. You couldn't prove that it's going to be better tomorrow than it was yesterday. Well, within 10 minutes, I'd gone across the DIY shop. I'd got some hooks, brass hooks. I'd screwed them into our window frame, and we was hanging toys on the window frame to attract people. We was putting prams outside the shop on the pavement, and I rang the solicitor saying we're not selling. And I got about half an hour of a boost then when the guy found out that I wasn't going to sell. So from that day, business started going up, because business is never good or bad, really, except inside your head. And if you are determined, if you make that a positive inside your head and do something about it, like I was putting stuff outside on the pavements, and attracting
taking a
people.
proactive approach.
Yeah, and then within a year, people was queuing up to get in that shop. The shop was full, upstairs and downstairs. It was absolutely packed, and we've got to move. And so we found a shop that was 5 times the size of ours in a new area in Orton in Peterborough, where there's a new shopping centre, and we sold the other one as a going concern. So we put all of the money, sold that for £10,000. Oh no, before that, a year before that, when I joined and we hadn't got any money, and Carla told me, and we needed more prams, I went to the estate agent and I said, we actually need a bigger shop and we need to sell this one. And he said, why? I said, well, we haven't got enough money to put into prams. All we've got in the money is in bricks and mortar. So he said, do a sale and lease back. And I never heard of it. I said, how do you do that? He says, one of my companies will buy your property. And I said, how much will I get? He said, I'll give you £8,000. Really? Well, it only cost us 3, I'll give you £8,000 and you give me £1,000 a year rent. You sign up for 21 years. And I go, well, that's a deal. He give me £8,000 like in a couple of weeks after that. Yeah. And I give him 20 quid. So renting that shop was brilliant. I said I didn't want to rent, but there is a time when if you're making money, because then we put more money into prams and doubled the turnover, paying that, and then we bought 3 other houses that we turned over. We made £1,000 on each of the houses because we renovated those.
So you're doing that at the same time?
I was doing it at the same time, yeah. So it was like
never stopping.
And then we sold that unit for £10,000. So we'd actually sold it for 18 in the end. So it turned 3,000 into 18,000, plus all the profit, because the second year we had profit from the shop. Then we ploughed that 10,000 into fixtures and fittings into this place 5 times the size, and we started that. Then we started another shop, and then another shop, and this was all by accident because we was doing so well in the big shop that we wanted a warehouse. So this place was advertised in a village. It said 5,000 square foot building in a village suitable for a nursery business. Well, nursery as in plants. And I thought it was a shed in a field. Yeah. So we went up to it. I got an appointment 2:00 in the afternoon with Norman Ryan Hodgkinson in those days, estate agent. It was a co-op. And I said, why didn't you advertise it? He said, well, we've got to keep it low key because it's still working. And we didn't want to upset the village. We didn't want to upset, and have complaints and the people. And it was £100,000. I said, I'll have it. He said, how are you going to pay for it? I said, cash. So we did a deal. Oh, and there's a school opposite. There's hundreds of kids. And we looked at each other and we said, this is not a warehouse, this is our next shop. Yeah. Never thinking that we'd ever have another shop. And all of a sudden, we was going from a 2,000 square foot to a 5,000 square foot shop. I hadn't got the money.
But you kept both the shops while you were buying this one?
Did. Yeah, and we hadn't got any money, but we'd got a good business going because we'd ploughed everything back into the business. We wasn't taking it out. So the bank saw the turnover, what we was doing and the profitability, and said, oh, you can have the 100,000.
Yeah. We'll lend it to you.
Yeah.
So running one shop and being there with you and your wife all the time is quite a leap then to open up another shop, because all of a sudden your time is diluted and your focus is diluted. Yeah. So how do you start to sort of scale that up?
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you begin to think everybody is the same as you. So everybody is the same as you when you are looking after them but micromanaging them, because they are doing what they like doing, serving their customers or taking goods in and pricing up, doing whatever. They love doing their job, but they don't want that responsibility. Yeah. And of course you don't know that they don't want that responsibility until you leave. So if you leave, So if you're micromanaging, it's a family and everything's fine. And we've got 15 people working in that shop, and it was great. Soon as you leave, who becomes the manager?
Store manager.
And who becomes the deputy manager? And who's going to take notice of them? And it starts to crumble.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. So therefore, you're happily working away in another shop,
thinking everything's going great.
yeah. And then we opened another shop because we thought this is all right. Because of course it doesn't go down straight away.
No,
I describe business. We always used to describe business as like a snowstorm. You know, you go to fancy a store and you buy these little snowstorms for your kids.
Yeah.
And you shake them, and the snow then comes down gradually. We used to describe business like as a snowstorm. So you give it a good shake, you put it on your desk, and you go on holiday. By the time you've got to the door to get out the door, that snow's coming down, and by the time you've got to the airport, it's settled.
Yeah.
And a business has got to be shook up every day. And while you're away and that snow's settled, that business is not doing anything. It'll go for a while, and it'll trundle along for a while.
Maintain, but it won't keep growing.
But there's nobody there to think of tomorrow, next month, next year.
So how did you solve that problem when you had 3 shops? How did you
sell 2 of them?
Really? Is that what you did?
Sold 2 as going concerns.
Right.
Yeah.
You didn't want to look for the people then. You didn't think about getting store managers in to run them.
Yeah, I did.
Recruiting.
Yeah, I tried.
You just couldn't find anyone.
I would say virtually everybody in that era of 1980, the 1980s, 1990s, in Peterborough, probably they had somebody in their family who worked for Kiddie Care.
Yeah.
We got through thousands and thousands of people. None of them was bad. They were just all looking for their dream.
Yeah.
And retail wasn't their dream. So therefore, you have to go through thousands of people very often. While you're going up the ladder, while you're building a business, you've got to go through thousands of people to get those gems who fit.
Yeah.
And we used to think there's something wrong with us. We used to think, are we too hard on people? Are we, whatever? And I began to think, and then you go through these phases, but then I began to think, no, what I've got to do is help them. So when people used to come, I used to shake their hand and say, because I probably didn't interview them or didn't employ them, it'd be one of the managers, and I'd shake their hand and say, welcome to Kiddie Care. I'm really pleased that you've decided to come work here with us. But just remember, when you leave, and they go, I've only been here an hour, I've only just started, I'm not leaving. I go, no, come on, be realistic. When you leave, I hope you don't, but when you do, take more knowledge with you than you've got today. Then I'll have done my job, and you'll have learned something, you'll have been used to the company, and you'll be used to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want somebody here for 10 years with 1 year's knowledge. I want one here for 10 years with 10 years knowledge. And that used to kind of relax people. And I used to say, and also, there's only one person responsible here. If you make a mistake and they think, oh shit, it's my problem. If you make a mistake, there's only one person who's responsible. I said, that's me. And that would give people, then they'd chastise themselves if they made a mistake.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have to. But it was, it's like when you grow in a business and it's intense and you are going to become the biggest in the UK. You don't know this, but you are going to become, you are a bit nutty.
Mm-hmm.
You are a bit of a freak, a nutcase, and you drive yourself so much and you expect everybody around you to have the same thing, the same mentality.
Yeah.
Well, some do, and they become a core, and then they infect other people. So you get 15 people that are kind of really close to you, managers in each department and everything, and then they infect other people with what your philosophy is.
Yeah.
And it becomes, then there's 50 people.
So that's how you built the culture then. It was, you had a nucleus of people around you that you'd kind of
Yeah, and our door was always open.
Get the values on board and share those values with them. They'd go off and spread that message.
Yes, and it's like looking after the customer.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't always get it right. Every day there'd be problems. Every day you'd get verbally slapped in the face. When you're in business and you're in a retail environment, you'll get verbally slapped in the face every day by people. You could have 1,000 customers that are really happy and one that's not, because you haven't delivered their parcel on time or something's gone wrong. But there you are. That's who we learn from. We learn from that one person every day who's vicious. We learnt that they thought they were right, and we've got to sort it out. We've got to run our business. So they were good, because if we didn't really like what they were saying, we'd run our business in a different direction.
Yeah.
So it's
that's how you improve, isn't it? With feedback, and quite often it's the negative feedback that really offers the most value.
It is.
So how did you grow from 15 to eventually where you ended up to 120? Because that's quite
one day at a time. So one day at a time.
Was that planned? Did you sit down at the start of every year and say, right, at the end of the year we want to be hitting this turnover, these are figures?
No, because of the dyslexia, I cannot do everything. I need people in the office. I need people around me to do all the paperwork. So whether it's buying, whether it's advertising, whether it's just a bookwork, whether it is dealing with the council, anything, you need people. So therefore, if you come across a situation where I was too busy or couldn't do it, you get somebody, and it will grow. We need somebody else. Marilyn went into hospital one time for 2 days, and she said, and 4 people had left, and this is when we had about 15 people, and we've got maybe 15, 20. We've got 3 shops at the time, and it's chaos. I was running around with a van, delivering stock, putting fires out, trying to educate people, trying to motivate people, trying to sort people's customers' problems out, like a lunatic, from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. It was just crazy. Marilyn had to go into hospital, and she said, we'd lost 4 people, she said, I'm never going to employ anybody else again. So I went into her office, I cleaned the desk, I packed all the papers up into a pile, and I go, well, I can't do this. I can't make checks out, because in those days we was making 30, 40 checks out a day. I can't do this. And they needed paying. People needed paying. So I rang the job centre, and by the time Marilyn had got back, I'd employed the 4 people again, plus 2 more.
Yeah.
She wasn't going to employ anybody.
She didn't have to, you did it.
Yeah. I said, these people are here to help, and we just went from there.
So it wasn't a strategic decision. This was, I guess, by the time you get to a stage where you or your staff are all at like max capacity, and you're thinking, I can't do this.
There's vacancies every day. Every day there's vacancies. Yeah.
Is that because of the high labour turnover, or just because there was so much, the business was growing so rapidly?
We was expanding. So therefore, it was, you probably got to have 20 people through to get 1 person. So
it stayed.
Yeah, because it was such a busy place, such a pressurised place. And it was like, God, people would come and say, I've never been in a place like it. 1, you're really, really serious about training, about getting it right.
Yeah.
And 2, it's so much to learn in such a little time.
It's not for everyone, is it?
It's not for everyone. Retail is for very few people, and they've got to be passionate about talking to people. They've got to be passionate about helping people, and retail is always a Saturday. When a lot of people say, well, I can come and work for you, but I'm not working on Saturday because my husband's off, or my wife's off. And so therefore it cuts it down. And people who did say, I can come, were soon gone because their husband or the wife would be going, well, we could have gone out, we could have gone to the seaside on Saturday, and you're there working, so you shouldn't have that job. And the other thing was, there was so many people smoked, and they come and say, there's a no smoking environment, we can't afford to have a fire, and you can't please a customer and offend them at the same time. You can't be there demonstrating a pushchair, smelling the smoke, just had a cigarette. So therefore, it's a no smoking environment. People go, oh, well, I'll give it a go. I won't smoke. 2 days later, they've left because they needed a cigarette. So there was hundreds of smokers who could not quit. And it wasn't their fault, it was my fault for believing they could.
Did you ever manage to sort that out? Because to me that just sounds like you're trying to grow a business, you're trying to run the business, which is hard enough, but you're also trying to grow it. And by recycling through so many people, like you say, that you've got to train them in such a short amount of time, but it does take time to train people. So they come in on day one and they're not really much value to you. If you're cycling through all those people, how did you continue the momentum of growth?
The managers used to pull their hair out and go, Neville, I'm not interviewing anybody else again. I used to go round the managers and say, come on, who's going to interview this week? And they go, oh no, I had such a shit week last week,
I'm not doing it.
And then I really believe these people, and they left after 2 days, and I can't be doing it. And they would go in and out of depression in a way. So there was always somebody there. And it was a bit of fun, really, because you go, come on, then who's going to do it? It's down to me now, And
did you not ever look for like external help there, like recruitment advisors or HR advisors?
Yes.
But still nothing worked.
Oh, they used to be worse than us.
Yeah.
They did. They just hire anybody, and it's like And we used to get people, and they'd go, I think I really like, I've had 3 children, I know all about prams, and some of them were really good, and they'd last 20 years, but you give them a whole pile of books, for advertising the prams, what the manufacturer would give us, and say, take this home, because we're going to ask you questions tomorrow. But they wouldn't come in. They wouldn't turn up. They'd think, why should I take all these books home and learn and then be asked questions? But you soon found out that the job wasn't for them. So it is very hard, and you have to have a lot of stamina.
Did you ever refine that process, or was that just something that
was being refined all the time?
And did it get better and better, or was it always a battle?
Yeah, because instead of hiring, you probably have 50 people come in, and you might hire 5 of them. Whereas before you'd hire all 50.
Yeah, right, okay.
So it did get better.
You did learn a little bit.
Oh, every day. Every day is a learning process. I do say every hour of every day, you should be learning something. You should. And it doesn't matter what age you are.
And how did you, talk to me about toilets, how did you implement your sort of culture in the business?
Toilets.
Why
have you asked that question?
Because of something you said before about.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Cleaning toilets.
Well, it's my daughter came round the other day, and there were some friends here, and we was talking about business, and she said, "Dad, do you remember?" She said, "When I started," she said, "I started getting a pay packet when I was 10, and I remember my first job, and you told me to clean the toilets, and I didn't want to, and you made me clean the toilets, and then you explained why, because if I could clean the toilets better than anyone else, then I was too good to clean the toilets, and I'd get a better job." And she said, I cleaned those toilets better than anyone else, and then I trained so many people at 10 years old and 12 years old, my kids were cleaning the toilets, and they were teaching people to clean the toilets. They were. And if you can capture kids at 10, they absorb things, and they understand, and they do them. and there's no problem, and then they can teach other people, and we used to say, right, I used to get a lot of kids from school, so I used to have to show them how to make a cup of tea, because tea was like all the time.
Tea's the fuel that keeps them going.
Everybody had tea. We didn't have they did have tea breaks, but it was like whenever they liked. That was the culture, and so they've got to make a good cup of tea. And they've got to clean the toilets better than anybody else. And they used to hate it. We go, but if you clean those toilets, because the customers judge the place by the toilets, and if you've got a pregnant woman coming in from half an hour, 2 hours away, the first thing they want is toilets.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they judge the shop on the toilets. So we train people to clean the toilets. And then obviously they wasn't afraid of it. So if they wasn't afraid of that, they wasn't afraid of other things.
Yeah.
And it was inbred in them to do whatever was necessary for the business. And that's what the culture was. And of course they didn't clean the toilets all the time, it wasn't that. I mean, we had so many people, but it was the attitude that counted. If they would do that, and they would do it to the best of their ability, and with pride and enthusiasm, then they could do it. It was the same as when we had 3 shops. I used to go around, I had 3 managers. I used to do an inspection every week. The managers wanted to show me the new display, and I go, no, let's start with the rubbish. If you go to their bins and they'd broken the cardboard boxes down and they'd put them in a nice neat pile, and all the rubbish was in the bins and there was nothing, and if the rubbish men had come and taken the rubbish away, there wasn't all bits of paper all over the place. But if there was, I'd say, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come back tomorrow and we'll do the inspection, and we'll start at the bins again. Mm-hmm. We always started at the bins. If you can get the bins right, I don't really have to worry about the shop, because I know the shop will be right. And so it's kind of reverse psychology.
How did you realise that was important? Is it customer feedback, or did you know that it was the little details?
No, because I knew from the building site that when you presented a bill to the customer and you had painted their house, you used to invite the customer to come and have a look round. And if you burnt the paint off the windows, and invariably it would get in their rose garden, whatever, underneath the windows. Mm-hmm. So we always used to carry a rake with us and rake their garden, so you couldn't see any flakes of paint.
Yeah.
We always used to brush their paths and things like that. So all they was doing was looking at the
finished job, and not.
Yeah, there wasn't picking, saying, well, at least you could have picked up all those flakes of paint or whatever. It was done. So it was that mentality of you drive into our car park, say that every car park, but the last car park was a huge car park. It was where we had 120 staff. There wasn't any rubbish. Lovely plants. There was no rubbish. So when you drove in, you didn't think, oh, look at all that rubbish. It was something that you wouldn't even think about, because there wasn't any. So you take all that stuff away from the customer's mind of finding fault. They used to go in, first lot, there was the toilets. I've never been in such immaculate toilets, because we had a full-time cleaner. You see, it's like, and it was that type of thing. They didn't have to think or worry or concern themselves with all they needed to come is clean toilets, have a coffee or something to eat in the restaurant, and get the demonstrations. So we took all that concern, all that aggravation away from the customer. So that's where it comes from.
It's good. It's interesting. And what about? I just want to touch on your supply chain, because I just want to find out. I've heard somewhere before that you were designing your own prams.
Yes, 39% of our sales were our own.
Right.
our own product.
And how did that all come about? How did you? Because I assume were they being made in England or were they being made abroad?
That was being made abroad.
So how did you start that process?
How it came about? Well, go back to the derogatory remarks of people saying, "Have you brought your wife in to do the painting, or can she decorate?" And those derogatory remarks made Marilyn get an office. So that office then become a shop. So you can see the pathway.
Mm-hmm.
So what made us manufacture our own goods? Right. So early on, we was adopters of of a website. So we'd worked on the website from 1997 to 1999. I opened it up in 1999.
You are an early adopter then,
Yes.
in the early 2000s.
Yes, yeah. So I thought in 1997, I was always looking 5 years ahead, what's going on. Where will our customers be? And this thing called the internet. So I thought in 5 years' time, kids will be buying their prams off the internet. So 1999 Christmas, we opened up the internet. So about 2004, other people woke up. One morning 200 shopkeepers woke up and go, "Our sales are down.
We need a website."
It must be kiddie care. They've took all our business."
Yeah.
And so they got on to the suppliers and said, "You're supplying kiddie care," and they would come to us and they, "Look, we've got 200 shops are aggravated with you, and they're asking us to stop dealing with you." That was one thing. So I used to say, "Well, why don't you sell more product into their shops?" And they've got it for the customer, because invariably they'd come to us because we'd got the stock, and they wouldn't buy it off them, even though they'd had a demonstration, because they'd have to order it.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to have the stock. You've got to fulfill the customer's needs, and that's what we were doing, fulfilling the customer's needs. So it got to a point where there was a recession, 2006-07 recession, and what had happened, and over the years we were being blamed for everything. There's a scapegoat. It's like the same person who packs up the building business 6 months after they started because somebody didn't pay them. They're using it for a crutch for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And it's the same here. They're using us as a crutch to say we can't compete. Well, there never was, they never would compete because it wasn't just us. And then we started to get awards. Best website, best nursery shop, best customer experience. And we started getting awards. And then the big people from the big companies started saying to the suppliers, "You supply them,
we're pulling the plug."
We're pulling the plug.
Really?
So do you want £10 million worth of business, or do you want £200,000 worth of business? So we had got to do something about it. Or we had always done some bedding and bits and pieces, own label, but we'd really got to pull our socks up and decide, what are we going to do? So we thought, okay, so if we go to the factories, buy virtually the same product, but in a different colour, then we would have a product there to go against any of the others.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will undercut them. So it's like I've been accused of undercutting, which I hadn't, because John Lewis was always the lowest price. And it was like we've been accused of undercutting so many. I thought, this is my opportunity that
really kick up the fuss.
Yeah,
blow them up.
yeah. Because if you want some trouble, because we was getting aggravation every single day. It was only one lot of conversation when reps would come in or their bosses would come in, and it was like, we're not going to supply you, or if we do, you've got to have the highest price. Even if we put the product to the highest price, we would still gain the sale because people wouldn't buy that product, they'd buy somebody else's. They'd buy a different product that we had got.
Yeah.
So anyway, we started manufacturing our own goods. And the crazy thing was, people started to come to us and say, can we manufacture for you? I go, but you're the ones that are telling us that you're not going to supply us.
Yeah,
and they go, well, if you really want us to manufacture, we will manufacture. So we'd got the due diligence done, we'd got the best factories, and we'd got virtually identical product but just a different colour at a much cheaper price.
Yeah.
And they were happy because instead of not selling anything to us because we'd put the price up as they had asked us, they were selling container loads to us.
Yeah.
So they would go to the other retailers and say, well, look, they've got the car seat or the pushchair at recommended price. So they're not undercutting you. And they go, yeah, but they've got their own product. Well, why have we got our own product? Because you complained about us in the first place. So that's the reason that most people do things, that this is the road you go down because somebody is aggravated with you.
Yeah.
So you go, okay,
I'll change it.
yeah. And that's the reason why, and we did 39%. And when we was leaving, we was going to go up probably to 80% of our own goods. We got 3 different brands, and the following year, 2012, we was going to put another 3 brands in there. But of course, we left at 2011.
And what was the reason for the exit? Was that a planned thing, or was that one day?
No, it was never ever planned. It wasn't. Like most things in business, opportunity, windows of opportunity, and your personal life and everything that's going on around you. You weigh all these things up, and there's always tipping points on everything. Every day there's tipping points in your life concerning all different types of things. So it had all kind of accumulated into one. There was the worst recession ever.
Yeah.
The high street was dropping like a pack of cards. Everybody was desperate to bolt on new enterprises so that they would capture other markets. Mm-hmm. And so we'd done it all the way along. We'd got property that we was buying and selling, building. We'd got commercial, we'd got residential, so we've got rents coming in. And so we're doing those things. In the nursery business, we've got clothes, we've got toys, we've got nursery equipment, we've got the shop, and we've got online. So we've got
multiple streams
about 9 streams of income. And they all went in a recession. So it's like hitting a brick wall. Mm-hmm. And they all went down. So we had quite a few tenants leave. So we lost £1 million worth of rent. And on top of that, the 6th of April 2008, the government put empty rates on property. Mm-hmm. So therefore, we not only lost £1 million worth of rent, we gained £1 million worth of rates.
Yeah.
And we thought that business was solid. And of course it wasn't. And then in the nursery business, we were selling prams up to 2007-8. We were selling prams at £1,400. Our best sellers, the stocky pram, our best seller was £1,200 to £1,400. Overnight, the prams that are selling was £399. Major problem because it takes 6 months to get your product in, and it's rolling on every day. You're ordering, and it's rolling in. So it's 6 months to stop it coming in, And then it's also 6 months to get new products manufactured at a cheaper price. So it was a nightmare, it was. But we've got to act fast. So there was a cot that we was doing £199. We rejigged it, reorganised everything. We took a lower markup. The people who were selling it to us took a lower markup. The factory in Poland took a lower markup. The people who chopped the trees down took a lower markup. And we was doing it £79.
The whole supply chain dropped their prices.
And that was because we negotiated with these people. We told them what was happening, and we told them, you're going to go bust unless we all get together and we all work together. And that's what we did. And I called it the Euro range. And I used to say to everybody, well, okay, we're going to make a Euro range, a high chair, a cot, playpen, all manner of things. This was all wood and stuff. And they go, what do you mean? Okay, what? I go, I want it for €1. And they go, well, that's impossible. I go, I know it is, but that's the starting point. Can we knock €1 off? And they go, oh yeah, I can knock €1. Well, can you knock €50 off? I go, I don't know really. Let's have a look. So there was called the Euro range. And we'll do a high chair for €1. And no, we won't, we can't. But that was the principle. Where can we go to shave the euro off? Yeah. We start with people who are knocking down the trees, cutting down the trees. And then it goes on. And so therefore, that was a brilliant strategy. That was.
So you managed to get through the recession then?
Yeah, because we was coming out of it in 2010. We was ready to go to 200 million. We were doing 40 million, and we'd got everything ready to go to 200 million. We had, but we realised in 2006 when the property was at the highest that there was a problem. In June 2006, I realised there was something wrong because things wasn't letting. Commercial property wasn't letting, although we're still building. Wasn't letting. So we'd had this problem from 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, it was about 5 years. And we knew there was a problem because I'd lived in a house, really nice house, for 26 years, 2 acres of manicured grounds. Had people there working. Two full-time people, indoor marble swimming pool that cost 80,000 in 1978, and all the good stuff. And we had to walk out that house. I had to sell it in a week, and walk out that house and live in the office for 2.5 years because we needed to put the money in the business. So we did a lot of stuff like that. Yeah. And people go, oh, I'll come by your office at 2 o'clock in the morning. You were still in there. I could see you still in there.
Just working hard.
Yeah. I bloody live there.
God, did you tell people that, or did you just keep that to yourself?
No. Our friends knew. Everybody knew really. No, the council knew. Tried to kick us out.
Yeah, of course they would.
And so that was saving the business. But then it turned. And we'd got our own manufacturing, so the profits started to go up, and we'd spent about 14 million on the build and the pick and pack operation, so all that was done. So we'd been through all this in the recession, but it beats you to a pulp. It does. And you get to a point of, is everybody singing off the same hymn sheet? Because after so much, when you build a business, you'll build a business with people. And I remember at one time we had 4 people that had worked for us for 16 years, really key people. And things happen in people's lives. And one person said, I'm leaving. I go, why are you leaving? you love the job. And he goes, yeah, but my dad died, then my mum died, then my brother died, and I just think it's time for a change. So he went to work for, he was a rep for one of our companies that supplied us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's fine, but it was a blow. And then another person at the same time that worked for us for 16 years, she said, I've met somebody in America who's an aircraft, you know, engineer, whatever, and he's going back to America, and I'm going to marry him. So she left. You know, and then there was another one, real key position. She said my circumstances have changed at home, and she left. And it was like there's 4 people for all different kinds of reasons, and so you don't know. So this is what happens. So in 2010, we've been through this recession, and you know, it obviously affected us, and we want to get up to 200 million. Now, things don't stop, but everybody has their own agendas, their own ideas, and I could see in the business that from the start we'd formed a business and people had gelled together, then it broke up into a bigger business and people had gelled together, and so it went on. This is what happens. Don't expect it to be the same all through the business. Some people can cope with £1 million business, and then when you decide to go up to £5 million business, they can't cope anymore.
Yeah.
And when you go up to £40 million business, some other people can't cope anymore. So this is a moving thing, and you look at where you are, what you want in life, what everybody else wants, and you make those decisions. And opportunities come along because, as I say, people were seeking bolt-on businesses to bolster up their business, and now we could look for acquisitions, or hunt, or we could be the hunted.
Yeah.
You know, and people could hunt us. So
that's what happened. Someone approached you.
Well, the thing is, somebody approached us and said, "I've got somebody who wants to buy a business," and I go, "Okay, well, the business is working. It's working better than it's ever worked before. I'll sell it." And within a couple of weeks, they got 30 offers.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. So that meant it was tongue in cheek when I said, "Yeah, well, we'll sell it," because they may have not had anybody, and I would have carried on as normal. So then when there's 30 offers, you go, "Well, I don't know, this is serious. Where's it going to take us?" And
was it a difficult decision to make, or once the offers started coming in,
no,
you think,
it wasn't a difficult decision. It was like when you're verbally slapped in the face. It was like when the mentor swung me round. You make these decisions, and you know, gut feel.
It feels right.
Is it right or is it wrong? Is it what you want to do? Is it fair to everybody around you? Is it fair to stay, or is it fair to go? You know, are you going forward in your life, or are you going backwards? Are you considering everybody around you? What do they want to do? So all these things were taken into consideration. What did everybody else want to do? And I had some really, really nice people that I'd worked with for like 20 years. And I'd seen them every day, and I worked with them every day. And some of them I'd worked with for 20 minutes a day. And they were really, really kind, because it's a massive decision to alter your life. And there was, and they knew how we were feeling coming through the recession, and they was really compassionate, and each one of them said, you know, you haven't got to think about anybody else really but yourself. But I was thinking about them, you know, as well. And it was really nice. That was. Still upset us. Still cried for weeks.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you lost your whole family
What was the sort of time frame when you got the offer to when it was sold?
So it was I think it was in about July 2010 that we did the paperwork, and then we did the due diligence, which took a few weeks. And
a few weeks?
Yeah, it was about...
For 40 million turnover, I thought it would take much longer than that.
No, because we had a lot of people on it. We had outside contractors on it, solicitors and accountants. Not our own accountants were on it, but there was
audit teams.
Audit teams, yes. And they did it in a few weeks. There was about 150,000 sheets of A4, basically, on the due diligence up in the cloud. So there was a lot, and it cost a lot of money to do that. Then only 8 people was allowed to look at that, and that was at the last end of the process.
Yeah.
So I was out. I didn't do anything because I was out of that team. Basically, they took it over, and they did everything. And all we did was make a decision. So who to go with, and how much to sell it for.
Yeah.
Well, it was a bidding process. It was, and there's 8 people at the end of the bidding process. So that went from July, and it was ready to market in November. So it went to November and December, and they whittled the people, like 11 people who we didn't want. Because they were just financial people, they wasn't interested in the business, just building it up and selling it on again. Yeah. And then there was 3 people who thought they could steal it, and then it came down to 8 people in December, and they did all their due diligence. And
was that a fun experience, or was that quite a stressful time?
I was
we weren't talking about small amounts of money, but in terms of you. Presumably you got to decide who to sell it to, or did you not?
Oh, that was 29th of January. Right. So all this was being done.
Oh, this was all being done behind the scenes, and then you were just eventually...
Yeah, I wasn't part of it.
Right.
I'm glad I wasn't part of it, because we hired professional people to do it. And there was our own team, our own managers, our own finance director, who was doing it. So therefore, it's better that we keep out of it.
Yeah, keep arm's length.
Yeah, because I'll only put a spoken. It's like when you got ADHD and you're up in the air and you're jumping about everything. And I'd probably made a decision in December.
Yeah.
Or November. They had a process, and the process we had to follow the process, and it's better for me not even to be in the process.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So 29th of January, it was just presented to me.
Yeah.
There's about 30 people in the office from all different places, solicitors and lawyers and whatever, accountants, and then we made that decision, and we made to go with Morrison's, and on the 14th of February, 70 million was in the bank. Yeah, and on that day I wasn't there. I was cleaning drains. I was with our maintenance team.
Yeah.
So it's they are, and it's a different life then.
Yeah. Wow. So what about the property side of stuff? The bit that interests me. Were you running property stuff alongside the...
All the way along. Buying and selling.
Yeah.
Renting. Everything. Renovating. All the way along. And then on the 3rd of February, somebody came into the office and said, "Do you still buy property?" And I said, "Yes, we do." So
probably even more so now.
They said, well, a friend of mine's got a Tesco's for sale and 20 other shops. So I went to see them, and he said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, I had a shop." I said, "We're just about to sell it." So he didn't know what size it was or anything. So
it was a newsagent or something.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So he says, "What are you going to do?" I says, "I'm going back into the building business." I'm going to create a building business. And he said, well, I've got a building business. He said, I've been running it for the last 30 years or so. And he said, the recession has really hit. He said, we've completed 280 houses, which we started building before the recession. He said, they're all built. He said, I've got no land, I've got no money, and I've got 12 people in an office in Milton Keynes. And he said, they're really good. He says, but we're shutting it. He says, why don't you come in with me instead of trying to build a business from scratch and finding the architects and the surveyors and all that kind of stuff. So I said, yeah, all right, shook his hand, and we went into business. And I paid the overheads on there, 37,000 a month it was, and then it gradually went up to 90,000 a month. And we built 600 houses together. And we just sold that business back to him, back to my partner, last, what is it now? Is it September now? When was that? About 3 months ago. Yeah, May, June, July. It went through the customs, you know, has to go through the, that. Anyway, it went, and we sold our shares back. Because everything has a cycle.
Yeah.
You know, we've moved on. We do a lot of commercial building.
Yeah.
And he's moved on. And so we decided that was a good time. And we built the 600 houses. And we had 15 sites at one time. And it worked. You know, that's life. And then we do other things. Well, a lot of commercial, some residential, some renovations, but it's in different businesses. So it's a different life. It is, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
Wow, interesting, fascinating stuff. Well, I've pretty much run out of questions. I think we're running out of time as well, so
okay,
we can wrap up there. But that was amazing.
Thank you.
What a story! I could go on for we should kind of a few pints and continue the conversation.
That's right. Another time. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you, and I hope your listeners will get something out of it, and hopefully they'll buy the book. And
yeah, I was just going to say, where can we find out some more about you?
On Amazon. You can get the book from Amazon. Audio is very good. So we've got
What's
book.
the name of the book again?
The answer is yes. Now, what is the question? And it charts through the whole of the business, how, why, when, everything. That's the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And lots and lots of interesting things that we've done that will help other people. And I wanted to do it because to show that anybody can do it, and especially if you've got a problem as well, and people, have got problems like dyslexia and ADHD and stuff like that, and then people put them down and they don't think they can, but they can do it, and that's why I did it. And we've helped start-up businesses all over the world, and there's so the money from the book. The profits from the book go to charity, and so far as £40,000 worth in the charity, and that's been going 70 years, but that's helped them over the last 3 years. So that's that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Okay, and
it's the best £20 I've spent anyway. I can tell you that because they get it back in a few days.
What's the website? Is it NevilleWright.com?
Oh, we can go to NevilleWright.com, or
I'll put that in the show notes anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or go to Amazon. But on the NevilleWright.com, there's a few interesting things.
I know there's quite a few resources on there that people starting businesses and business owners need to have a look at.
We just keep adding to that when we get time. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, Neville Wright. Thank you very much.
Thank you.